Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Oh my gosh! Listen to me. I'm excited to have you all here tonight. We have an amazing show. How many of you podcasters out there? You're thinking about growth, right? You're thinking about your podcast. You've created all these episodes. You've created this concept, and it's not growing, or it's kind of growing. Not so much the way that you want it to grow. But here's the one thing that I want us to talk about a little bit first tonight. It's going to be the idea of what is growth, first and foremost. So we're going to define that first a little bit. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how tech and live streaming can help you with your podcast growth. But before that, let's go ahead and jump into this. Let's go.
Boy, right.
Oh, look at these two guys tonight. Look at these two guys that I have here tonight. I mean, listen to me. I got to tell you, one of the things that I was looking at all my analytics, and I realized that, I was doing okay with the guys, but I wasn't doing too well with the ladies, right? And I said, I got to get this viewership up. So tonight, I literally brought some eye candy tonight. My beard is normally like just black, but for tonight, when you see our lineup tonight, so Junaid, I actually just painted some of my beard gray so that I can kind of blend in with Junaid and James tonight. Look, I mean, let me just go ahead. Look at these guys. They're like models right here tonight. We are going to be talking to both of them here shortly. But before we do that, thank you for all of you who are probably listening and thinking about this and in our show on our YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. The fact that you would take time out of your evening to listen to us on YouTube. If you are listening to this on Facebook, I think we're also on Twitter. You can go ahead into our YouTube channel. It's that Podcasters Live. We are trying to rapidly grow our Podcasters Live channel. We have some amazing, amazing guests for the tail end of this year, but also as we move into next year. And the content is here to help all of our podcasters who want to understand how to go live, but more importantly, kind of grow their brand and then also grow their audience. The major piece that we have going on is for a Facebook group is around community. We firmly believe in community, and that can mean different things to other people. But for us, from a Podcasters Live standpoint, it is going in there and helping people understand a little bit more about who they are as a podcaster and what their needs are if they are thinking about going live, and helping them kind of cross that bridge so that way they can have a successful transition from just being a podcaster, but to also being a live streamer to help them grow their brand and also grow their audience. And the platform that we use tonight, each and every night, whether it's tonight for our live stream or it's our Sunday tutorial classes, we use Ecamm Live. We are a massive, massive fan of Ecamm Live. We are an affiliate of Ecamm Live. I have tried each and every platform out there, from going from StreamYard to Riverside.fm to Squadcast, you name it. I have gone through each and every platform, and I landed on Ecamm, about 3 or 4 months ago. And I have been truly full time, really. I've been enjoying myself on Ecamm Live. And so if you're thinking about understanding how to increase your production value, make sure you go to Ecamm Live and do that. All right. So tonight, I've been looking forward to this all day. I took a nap. I took an old man nap so that way I can be prepared for this conversation. I typically try to keep everything to an hour, but tonight we have two amazing, amazing individuals tonight. So we have Mr. Junaid Ahmed, who has Hacks and Hobbies podcast, and then we also have James Hicks, who has Hicks New Media. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Ooh, hold on.
What?
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Wait,
Put the
here?
sound effects in there. This brother brought us out like, okay. Let me
What'd I
make sure
do?
I'm ready too. Okay.
What'd I do? What's wrong, man?
No, you did nothing wrong, brother. You did nothing wrong. Look at this.
Everything right.
Podcasters Live.
Oh, gentlemen. I'm excited to have you here tonight. So before we go ahead and actually say hello to you and talk a little bit more about who you guys are and what you guys got going on, I want to make sure I say hello to everybody that's actually out here, connecting with us. How are you doing, Laura? Good to see you. Marilyn, how are you? Marilyn, you were just on James other
Maryland, good people.
right? He was just on your other live stream. James, you are a beast, man. We're gonna talk about that here in a second too. Rich vibes, Marilyn. Okay, how you doing? Hey, James, how are you doing? Uh-oh. How are you doing? How are you doing, Keely? Holy smokes, dude, I cannot keep up with all of these. She's probably talking about all of James and his live streams. Hi, Rich. So there, and we have the community people saying hello to each other back and forth as well.
Yeah.
And then, but I look at that screen and I'm gonna have to hear all these.
Let me go ahead and make sure that my big bottom is in on the board.
You gotta make sure. I'm gonna get a little closer for the full proximity effect got going on. And he's not just on the stage, but he's also in the live stream commenting as well. So I appreciate that. You are definitely catering this demographic right here, and I appreciate your efforts.
It's all you, Junaid.
That's it. Oh man, that's all.
I'm just here because Junaid is in the building. So.
Yeah, that's it. This is it. That's right. And someone, of course, from Facebook says hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, gentlemen, I want to start with you, Junaid, and talk a little bit about kind of your kind of your podcast, and then how your podcast kind of came to be, and then we're going to go to James and talk a little bit about Hicks New Media and all the different things that he has going on over there. But Junaid, you want to start us off a little bit tonight?
Absolutely, man. So I started a podcast. Well, I had a podcast back in 2012 called Still Brewing It because we were brewing up some ideas and we're like, hey, let's just talk about it. But then we only managed to put out like 4 episodes. And the only way we knew how to record, we had people all over. Uh, my cousin, my brother in law, they're in California. I was in Colorado. So we had the time difference, right? We had the time zone difference. We had the um, distance. We couldn't be in the same room recording content. So we ended up using Google Hangouts, stream it to YouTube to be able to record a conversation among the three of us. So we didn't have anything like Zoom. Anyhow, long story short, that podcast lasted 4 episodes. And I was like, all right, this is too much. Since then, I've been wanting to start up a podcast again. Now, I've been blogging, I've been tweeting, I've been doing all of that stuff for a decade and a half. But then it was actually me finished reading Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk
Mm,
is when he told me, Junaid, you just got to document your journey. Just go ahead and do it. Now, what's funny is that it just happened that I had just finished taking an 8-week course on beekeeping. Yes,
that's right.
beekeeping. I wanted
That's
to
right.
be a beekeeper.
We're going to talk about
But
that tonight.
so finished the class 8 weeks, and now hey, I can document my journey to beekeeping. Now I was like, I don't know how to start this podcast. So my buddy, my colleague was like, hey, why don't you talk about Queen Bee? You know who Queen Bee is, right? I'm like, do I? It's like it's Beyonce. I'm like, oh, I did not know that. So if you go check out the episode, the first episode, I talk about that and I say thank you, Beyonce, for all that you've done. So that's how Hacks and Hobbies got started. In fact, I didn't even have a name for the podcast when I started. I just wanted to get started, start running,
Mm,
because that's the only way you can modify, iterate, and get better at what you're doing.
excellent, excellent. I love the name Hacks and Hobby. We're going to get to some more details about that. So when I started this live stream journey, and a lot of times for me, it's always trying to I look and see people that I can connect with, and Junaid, you were one of them. And then of course this next gentleman that's going to be coming up, I saw him live streaming a couple times. I was like, okay, it was Team No Sleep, and I was like, okay, all right, this dude's good. Then I look, and he's live streaming again. Then I look again, he's live streaming again, and he has like 5 or 4 different live streams, and I'm like, dude, how many does this guy have? Like, this is amazing. Mr. James Hicks, like, could you talk a little bit about Hicks New Media and
Oh
everything that you
man.
got going on? You have so many different pieces that I know everybody who's here, they're going to want to learn and know a little bit more about. Talk a little bit about everything that you got going on in Hicks New Media, please.
I definitely will. But first and foremost, man, look, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Worthy, for the invite. Getting on Podcasters Live here and telling our story. This is truly a blessing and truly an honor. So I want to give you those flowers, brother, while we can. Um, yeah, Team No Sleep, not just the name of a stream, right? I'm trying to use all 24 hours as much as I can and try to be effective and try to bring conversations that resonate with my community and kind of at a mission statement for anything that I do from a content creator perspective. It is to entertain, educate, and enlighten. Right. So I'll talk about kind of the awkward conversations as they relate to society. I'll talk about enterprise technology because that's me from an education and from a professional perspective. I talk enterprise tech all day. I like talking to entrepreneurs and other content creators who are out there making a difference and moving the needle, right? So I have a lot of conversations with folks so they can tell their story. And that's really my goal. Right? I turn the lights on, I press record, and I sit in the back and I just let folks tell their story because they're so amazing. And I can always learn something. And I feel the community has also resonated with a lot of the conversations that I've been having. So kind of like Junaid, I started back in the early days with WordPress blogging. I still have a number of websites that I manage and push out content from a textual perspective. But if there was any blessing of COVID, right, this 17 months or so during lockdown where we had to pause and actually think about what it was we were going to do from a personal and a professional perspective, my content journey turned into really more video, right? And again, getting in front of the camera. I've always been comfortable getting in front of the camera because I do it on a daily basis. But again, bringing in people to have conversations about tools, processes, about scenarios, about businesses and things like that. I just wanted to share people's stories. So yes, I fire up a lot of streams throughout the week. Try not to overdo it. I don't want to inundate the market, right? I don't necessarily want to be DJ Khaled, right, and have another one, right? But I do want to be out there providing constant quality content to my community. So yeah, so that's what we do, man. Hicks New Media, always online, always streaming. Again, just trying to build community, have conversations, and in line with today's conversation, really gotten serious about the audio part, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the podcast. So the podcast is doing, I'm not gonna lie, it's doing a pretty good job,
Good.
right? Just being, again, taking the video piece, right, and then sharing out that micro content either as an audio podcast or on other social networks. That's really resonated as well. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of the community and here to serve, man.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Well, I want to jump into a question that I was talking a little bit about it on my Sunday tutorial in the community. I think both of you kind of chimed in a little bit on it too. There are two, maybe three schools of thoughts, probably really two schools of thoughts, an idea about what a podcast is, right? I have my own perspective on on what it is, and then I know nowadays there's a lot of things that may be considered a podcast, but I really wanted to get your perspective on your definition on what a podcast is. And James, I'll start with you.
I will say that a podcast is any story or any piece of content, anything that you're looking to sharing with a community. It doesn't always have to just be the audio piece. Podcasts have been around forever. They were not cool for a while, but then now they're the latest thing, right? Again, everyone's creating content and doing the audio piece, doing audio apps as well. So you see a lot of social audio apps coming out in the clubhouses, the Twitter spaces, and things of that nature. So I really put everything under the umbrella of a podcast. I call the streams I do infocasts, though,
Mm, mm.
just to differentiate. And I should trademark because I don't think anyone else has used that before.
I just
But
did.
really
I just trademarked it right as soon as you
no,
said
we're
it.
gonna put that on a shirt
Soon,
too,
soon
right?
as you said it,
Shout out to
I
Press and Sell.
trademarked
Next
it.
thing you know, it's gonna be the Steve Worthy Infocast. No, I classify and I define a podcast really as a platform for or a mechanism and a medium for sharing stories about your community or about any particular subject matter that you're talking about. So again, that could be audio, that could be video, that could be any other form as well.
Excellent, excellent. And Junaid, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a sucker for history, right? So podcasts came out, right? Where did it come from? Well, we've been watching television broadcasts for God knows how long. And when the iPod came out, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna have this audio platform. You're already listening to music on here. Why don't you download some radio on the go?" So they combined the iPod to broadcast and made it podcast. Now, podcast now has a much larger vision, larger view around it
Mm-hmm.
because they're so easy to launch one. Like I literally, like the way I started my second podcast was I download the app Anchor FM. I started recording on my phone while I'm driving home because it was so easy. It just mind blew, it just blew my mind because in 2012 we had to go through all these hoops and hooplas to record one conversation.
Yeah.
But now it was so easy. So podcast is come a long way. 20 years
Mm.
is how long it's been around, or at least a concept for it. And then we have some really old podcasters from, the early 2000s
Mm-hmm.
still around, like Cliff Ravenscraft with 41 podcast shows.
Yeah.
It's just mind blowing. So it's really a great way to not only get your information out, cast your information, but
There you go
also
too, right?
another
Oh, see, there you
way,
go.
You can't say it. He's gonna send you an invoice now for saying it.
Buy it
right?
around here.
and another way to bring in people into your world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, James mentioned Clubhouse as another audio platform, and what I jumped on, and they were talking about podcasts, and initially it was all about information, or it was a way to market to your client or to be client, because it was hard for people to get people. Like, podcast was another marketing tool. Again, every time we put any type of content out there in the world, it's a way, it's a funnel. I don't want to use a word funnel. It's a stream into
A
our
little
own
business 101, right?
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, business 101. Hey, this is what I'm talking about. This is what's up, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, man. I think that because that whole thing with podcasting, we started a podcast. A buddy of mine. Well, here's what we started initially. It was on Blog Talk Radio. This is how old I am. I don't know if you guys remember
Wow.
that or not,
Yes, sir.
but
Good
it
stuff.
was 2007, and we did a Blog Talk Radio concept. It was called For Husbands by Husbands, and where we helped husbands who were entrepreneurs learn how to balance being an entrepreneur and also how to being a husband as well. And then my buddy, we worked for the same company, and our CEO was like super like tech savvy, like forward thinking, and he knew we had this Blog Talk Radio thing. He came up to us one day at lunch. He said, "Dudes, have you guys ever thought about doing a podcast?" And we're like, "What the hell is that?" And we had no clue what it was, and so we ended up. Once we did our research, we ended up very similar to probably what we're doing now, or what a lot of people do now with their video, is we stripped out the audio, and then we created the RSS feed, and really it's just a form. If at the end of the day, if you really just had to look at it on its face, it's really a form of delivery, right? It's a
Beautiful.
delivery
Yeah.
system for content that's you can either do it on demand from an RSS feed and things like that. So I think it hasn't gone too far away from its core definition as being a delivery system, but now it's just a matter of what are you delivering, and then the platform that you're actually delivering your content on. Would you guys agree with that? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
and so I'd like to chime in on
Absolutely.
that, right?
Yep.
And because at the end of the day, yeah, we're providing content and we're doing all of those things, but that convenience, that ability for your community to reach you and to hear your messages when it's right for them, right? We go live and we have live streams at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night sometime, whatever our time zone is. That's not convenient for someone in Canada. That's not convenient for someone in Hawaii, right? And folks that
Yeah.
are globally dispersed. But by having a recorded mechanism, by having the audio portion as well, to where maybe I'm in the gym, right, and I want to hear the F.H. Humphreys podcast about what it is that she does. I have that capability, and I have that option as well. So on demand audio and video types of capabilities, that's really key to being able to be where your community is. You can't be everywhere, right? It's
Correct.
just like all these social media networks, right? You can't be on TikTok, you can't be on IG, you can't be on Snapchat. You can't keep up with the kids all the time, but make yourself accessible to your community where they are, because yeah, a lot of folks are on YouTube, but more and more folks are turning back to old school audio podcasts, and they're on Spotify, they're on Apple, they're on everyone else, at iHeartRadio and things of that nature, right? So
Mhm.
be cognizant of that, and deliver the content into those locations where your community and where your audience is.
No, absolutely. And we have a question that I think it's relevant to what we're talking about right now before we move into something else. And Mami Lala asks, can you turn some live stream videos into podcasts? Will the repurposing be difficult? It's a great question. I'm not going to answer the question because it's not about me. It's about you guys. Junaid, what are your thoughts?
Man, that's an excellent question, and you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry, I missed the question.
No worries. I'll put it back up there.
Oh
There you
yes,
go.
yes. I answered. I kind of I kind of typed it in on Facebook. How can you turn a live stream videos into podcasts? Yes, you can, but you got to have a run of the show. Which portion of that live stream can you use it for your show, for your podcast? Because if you're live streaming and you having a active conversation with the people commenting, well, guess what? It's going to be hard for them, people listening it after the fact, to get the context of what's going on. So you might want to set up segments on your show and say, oh, in the beginning, we're going to answer questions, or in the end, you can answer questions, communicate, engage with the audience. But then in the meat is what you want to deliver on the podcast, because people are coming to listen to podcasts because they want a certain, they're hunting or they're looking for certain entertainment purpose or certain learning purpose. So there's a ton of ways, there's hundreds of different ways that people are doing this. You got to find your groove and see how that comes together.
Excellent. I agree. Agreed. I just want to say a big shout out to my buddy Jamie Taylor. Uh, Jamie Taylor, he and I go back since I started doing this regeneration of my podcasting
Nice.
journey. He's over in the UK as well, and I know it's a little late in the fact that he jumped on to kind of show some love and support. I appreciate you, dude. He and his
Nice.
brother are going to be on one of our Sunday tutorials, and we're going to talk about editing some sound design pieces for your podcast. So just be on the lookout for that one as well too. You know,
Love
I can when I think about this idea of, actually I don't use this one, of the podcast piece and using your live stream. I got a coach. I think everybody needs a coach for something, right? I'm a coach, and I got a coach for executive stuff, and I also got a podcast coach. And he and I were talking. We were having this conversation, and I really want to get your perspective on this, because I kind of agree with it, because it almost kind of goes into what Junaid said. Because I was going through this whole live streaming piece, and he said, "Well, Steve, it's either a live stream or a podcast." And initially I was just like, I kind of disagreed. I kind of disagreed, and I was just like, no, I think I can do the podcast from the live stream. But when I think about it, Junaid's right. If you're gonna do a live stream piece, there needs to be some measure of a run a show. I think that if you're gonna intentionally probably maybe use some of this content or some pieces of this content for your actual podcast episode. James, you look like you're chomping at the bit, dude.
I am, because you guys are hitting on it, I think, in the right direction, and they're synonyms for themselves: intent and purpose, right? And I know someone within our community actually has a shirt, I believe, that says that. But each word means the exact same thing. Be very intentional about the messages that you're pushing out, right? Have some method behind the madness. Each live stream, again, when you're having a lot of conversation and you're dialoguing back and forth with the community and with the comments and things like that, that doesn't resonate as well, again, when I'm sitting in the gym underneath the squat rack and I've got a podcast in my ear, because I can't experience that experience. So having kind of like Junaid was saying, where you cut it up, where you have the micro content piece, or where you have a specific segment of that 60-minute session, to where it's, you press record on the roadcaster, and this piece right here is going to be the audio podcast piece, as opposed to just the live stream and the back and forth commentary. So you can obviously pull a podcast out of a live stream, but be very intentional about what it is that you push out to those different platforms, right? Because there's going to be some edit. You need to edit it out first. You need to edit out the countdown timer, because no one listening to a podcast wants to hear your live streams countdown timer, because they can't experience that whole engagement and that interaction that you have on the video as well. So be methodical, be conscious of whatever you push out to the different platforms as well. It's very similar to all the social media platforms as well. What you put on LinkedIn cannot be the same thing you put on TikTok. It just can't, right? It's completely different audiences and completely different distribution mechanisms. So I like what you guys said about that, but I wanted to get that part out.
No, that's a good point. Yachty, I want to say. You guys,
Yachty, this is my buddy Everald.
did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, Yachty.
Yachty. Okay, excellent. You guys are motivating me to restart my show. Appreciate the different angles. It goes way too quick. Appreciate the different angles of dissecting podcasts. This is what we do. Appreciate you. I'm glad you're enjoying that. All right, Jamie's going to add his 2 cents in here. He says, "My 2 cents on live streams as podcasts. TED Talks has been doing this for years. They have a disclaimer at the start of each audio, inviting people to view. Once again, I need to keep it on there to view the video portion for extra content, right? And then he also adds, as a creator, I would use a section of the live stream as a sort of short 10, 15-minute call to
Yep.
action for getting people exactly to watch the live stream, assuming that their goal is to get people to watch the live. 100%, 100%. And then Mommy Lala says, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Junaid. Thank you so much. These are great points that will help guide her forward. I appreciate that. And that's what we want to do. We want to help people understand that, when you're out here trying to start a podcast, here's the other question that I want to ask you guys too, because for me, I love podcasting. I get up early in the morning. When I first started, I got up super early in the morning, came down in here into this office, this little part of this office, 5 o'clock in the morning, and, had this mic that picked up all the freaking sound in the world. And, and then, and then, and then I started doing it. I fell in love with it. I believe that podcasting is a craft though, as well, right? I think live streaming is a craft. And I think the part of when we start to talk about this whole idea of content creation and taking that live stream and making it a podcast, and it almost kind of dilutes, if you will. This is not, I'm just, for the sake of the argument, it almost dilutes the idea that a podcast is also a craft that has something. It's almost like, a painting, that people have taken their time to actually create. What are your thoughts on that context, on that perspective?
Junaid, I'll let you go first, sir.
Junaid.
All right, so this idea of creating the content for the purpose, or bringing together, and sorry, my mind is running in a ton of different places because I'm looking at these comments. I'm like,
Stop looking at the
all right,
comments.
stop looking at the comments.
I got it, man. I'm just messing with
But what's beautiful is that no matter which way we do put the content out, we're exercising one thing: we're getting the message out. And when we get the message out, you getting up early in the morning, recording the conversation, and you falling in love with that aspect. You falling in love with that exercise.
Mm.
We build that habit. What that helps do is that it kind of replaces journaling. It kind of helps clear your mind because you're going through all of mine, you're emptying it out. So then you're ready for the day and receive new information. I think taking it from different perspective, like not only are you helping people, you're also helping yourself, and you're creating evergreen content that you can point to people like, hey, check out that episode, or talk about
Yes.
the queen bee and the importance of queen bee, and all of those things. So you can do that with your content, especially because it's so easy to do that now.
Mm. I'm gonna let James go because I got something I wanted to talk about that Junaid said, and but
Yeah.
James, I know you had something you want to say.
Well, no, that was an interesting aspect, right? What Junaid was talking about the whole mental piece as well, because it's very, very self fulfilling and very, very healthy for us to have these conversations. I think it's very interesting too to look at a podcast different from a live stream, because a lot of times it's a one-on-one conversation when you're doing a live stream, you're doing an interview. But when you're podcasting, you're talking to yourself,
Yeah.
right? And being able to have that dialogue, being able to know that you have to control and you have to capture your audience's attention really fast, right? Because all our attention spans are very short, 1 to 3 minutes, whatever the metrics show. So you got to be funny. You got to tell a joke. Whatever you got to do, you got to have a compelling topic to maintain your audience's attention as well. So being able to do that, and it's hard to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard to do that off the cuff, right? A lot of us are probably good Toastmasters and can probably come up with something and stand in front of the room and say something right off of the dome. But again, be intentional about what you're doing. Have that run of show, have that dialogue, have that script, something written down, those bullet points that you want to talk about. And you're a Pomodoro guy, Steve. I'm gonna eat the frog,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
in terms of handling the big things first, so have that main topic that you're looking at capturing within your podcast first to grab folks' attention and maintain them for the extent that 10, 15, 20 minutes of the podcast. So I just wanted to get in that and reiterate it on what Junaid was saying about the mental aspect of what podcasting can do for a lot of us creators.
We have just
We have a
exponentially
guest.
increased the cuteness value of this live stream. We have exponentially increased the cuteness value. How are you
Yeah.
doing? Not you, Junaid. Who's this? And please introduce your co-host.
Can you share your name?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear her.
We didn't hear you.
Lila?
Dania.
Yeah. How are you? Do you want to be a podcaster? No.
No, no.
There's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't want to be a
Yeah, no.
podcaster either.
Yeah.
Junaid, you made a point, right? Because I love what you said earlier, and James kind of touched upon it a little bit too. You know, there was a feeling for me, and we're gonna get back to the comments here in a second. There was a feeling for me, like after I, did the podcast and did the episode, there was this feeling of like, reward, but there was also this feeling of like, man, of like, wow, this is so cool. I was emptying it. It was almost like emptying myself of
Mm-hmm.
the content, of the idea, of the perspective, the topic or whatever it was to give to somebody. When I did that, man, it was kind of euphoric, man. I was just like, dude, this is, and I think to your point about the process, like that process of getting up early, getting the coffee, coming down, putting the lights on, getting everything set up. Like there was a whole rhythm to it. And I think there's a lot of people too. And I think a lot of people that do from a live stream standpoint, they do the same thing as well. So let's just do this real quick. I want to make sure we have a tech question because I want to go into gear. We got about 5 minutes before we start talking about some gear, man, because I'm excited about that. Tech question. Can one, I'm going to make sure that I keep it up here. Can one do a podcast with just a USB mic, or do I really need an XLR mic and Rodecaster Pro and such? Woo, Lala, you already you got gas and you haven't even started. And
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
man.
Dave
gonna
is
let
off
you.
the right products too, right?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Go ahead. Who wants to go ahead? James, you want to start with that one?
I'll start. Look, at the end of the day, if you got a story to tell or you want to hear other folks' stories, just press record on something somewhere. You got $1,000 recording device probably in your pocket already, right? You can go live and record audio note or whatever, buy an app for $9.99 and get it done there. Long answer short, no, you don't need to have an XLR microphone. USB microphones are now phenomenal in terms of their capability and software that they've got built into some of the Rode mics and some of the Shure mics. And I know Junaid has a handful of them as well. But again, being able to customize your audio signature with the USB mics as opposed to having an external interface, you can get it done for a reasonable amount of money. You can go to your local Micro Center, your local Best Buy, or shouts out to Amazon because they come here every single day. Uh, just press record it with a story and go out and tell it. You don't need all of that fancy gear. Now, what's most important is the audio, though, right? So this right here can be constituted as a podcast as well. So we all look good. I mean, Junaid is looking fantastic with all the
Yeah,
with the bokeh and the lights. We're trying to live up to his level, but
that's right.
you would still listen to this or watch this stream if our video was jacked up.
Mm,
But
Yeah.
if the audio was off,
mm,
man, that's tough to get over that piece, right? That
Oh, yeah.
auditory piece, that's really where the human body resonates with. So keep that front of mind and center, right? Lighting, video, and all the other aspects are critical, but the audio piece is the most important piece. So yeah, make sure you have the best that you can comfortably afford if you're trying to really get serious about this particular medium of content creation.
mm. Agreed.
I
Junaid.
love I love what James said, record with what you have now. Just any way to record, and that's what I mentioned earlier. I started my podcast by recording it on my smartphone.
Hmm.
And beautiful thing, I had purchased a USB microphone. It was sitting in the closet, but I didn't have the time to spend. I was like, hey, I have time here in my car. Let me just start recording. Because guess what? Even though you can go buy the most expensive microphone, the most expensive shoes, you cannot run a marathon the next day. No siree. It is impossible for you to. Hey, I bought the $250 shoes. Why can't I
Yes.
run this marathon? What's going on? You got to get started. You got to put in the reps. So no matter what it is,
Man,
get
speak
the
on that
message
right
out.
there.
Yeah, man. Practice. Practice. Not a
Right,
game.
right. I mean,
Not a
what
game.
Junaid just said, I mean, that's key as well. We'll go out and we'll buy the
Yeah.
latest thing, right? We'll buy the latest Shure, the latest whatever the case may be, but we sure will forget to read those instructions
Yeah.
and not know how to use it, not know to
Yes.
set white balance on a camera,
Yes.
not know how to set compression and amplification and big bottom on a roadcaster, but you got the gear. It's
Yeah.
supposed to sound right, right? It's supposed to sound like whomever your X, Y, and Z favorite podcaster is. I got all the
Hmm.
gear. Why am I not sounding the way that they do? Because you forget
Yeah.
and you throw away those instructions and you think you can
You
figure
just
it out.
you just got to
Man,
get
see,
started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. So we say we
I like.
with I'm going to get into that one in a second. I'm going to leave that one on a second. We in Podcasters Live, we say though, like she's talking about mics and everything, and I get it and 100% get it. But we say content is king, but audio
hmm
is queen, and we know that women run things.
ooh, there
So
you go.
uh, just saying. So when you start to think about your audio and all of that stuff, right? Great, but I think the content is of course, I know sometimes it may go without saying, but it really doesn't go without saying. If your content isn't dialed in, or you can work up to getting it dialed in, but you have to
hmm
start somewhere. And I'm going to go on a tangent for a second about content, because I firmly believe that, especially with podcasting and even sometimes with live streaming, I think you always have to have something to go back to. You have to have pillars or your values or something that will drive your messaging. Because when you're starting to talk about, started talking earlier about your run a show, and whether it's a live stream or your podcast, if you don't have fundamentally something that you're going to be known for when you podcast or you live stream, then you're really just going to be rambling on about, let's just say it's about sneakers, right? But if you want to talk about vintage sneakers, but then, hey, niche down again, you want to talk about vintage Nike sneakers, right? So now you have something that's more concrete to talk about. When we just
Mhm.
start talking about sneakers, we can be talking about pro kids and, Vans, whatever it may be. So start to think about your content in that context, because if you don't, then it doesn't matter how good you sound too. You can
Right.
sound great and not make any sense. We've all heard it.
Wow,
We've all heard it.
fantastic point.
And so we want to make sure that you actually go in that go in that direction as well.
But
Amen.
don't be afraid to start,
A hundred
right? I
percent.
mean
Nope. 100%.
that sounds very daunting, right? To
Yeah.
think that you have to have 100% dialed down and everything written the right way. You've got your intro, you got your bumper, you got your call to action, you got all that stuff planned out and thought about and written down already in your notes. But if you don't, if you've got the idea, if you got the framework and you've got the foundation, you know what you want to talk about, still start. Don't
Correct.
wait. Get out of your own
Correct.
way. I say that a lot of times, right? Get out of your own way and don't hesitate, because if you do, 2021 will go away and then it's 2022. And then next thing you know, 23 is here and you still haven't actually gone out there, press record and put out your piece of content when it's in you, and you folks want to hear your message. They really do. They really do. So
Yeah, they're
yeah,
waiting
You
for
get
you,
out
know,
of your
man.
own way.
They're waiting
you know
for
what?
you. I say that
They
all
are
the
waiting for
time.
you.
Go
So
ahead,
much
Junaid.
so that last year when the pandemic hit, my cousin started saying, "Hey, I'm working on my garden," and I was like, "Oh, I want to do a garden too." So for like 2 3 weeks, I'm like still thinking, still thinking. He's like, "Dude, I got these vegetables growing in my garden." I was like, "What? What did you do?" It's like, "Well, I got started." Like, "Oh,
I just put
I'm
them in
still
the
even
ground.
thinking about."
Yeah, I
It's that
actually
simple.
started. I actually started, and you contemplated on what do you want to have, cabbage or what type of carrots you want. He just said, I'm just going to start. So Jamie asked, speaking of
Right.
Toastmasters, have any of you had training in public speaking?
I have not specifically Toastmasters, but actually through an organization. I gave HP 20 years of my life. So, and actually, when I was with them, I actually went through some internal public
Nice.
speaking courses and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I went through some. I attended Toastmasters. I was on the plan, and then I was like off the plan, but I learned a lot, and that's what I use now. Whenever I speak, I make sure that I'm taking pauses. I'm making sure that I'm not
Hmm.
hanging on words. It's really powerful when you get that dialed in.
Yeah, you don't want that bell to ring anymore, Junaid, when you say or ah. Yeah, I did the Toastmasters
Mhm.
thing and the Dale Carnegie and some other stuff like that
Hmm.
from a public speaking standpoint as well. Also, have any of you taken any training in writing or improv? I feel that mind domain development can benefit with improv training. Great question. Great question, Jamie.
Hmm.
Anybody of you, any of you taken any improv classes or anything like that? Junaid, you look
I
like an
have not.
actor.
No.
Junaid, you
Yeah,
look
I'm
like
I
an
looking great.
actor.
I have not, but
Pull up those modeling pictures, Jeanette. I saw some modeling pictures from back in the day. You got them, brother.
Yeah, he
We know
does.
now it's out.
well,
All right, I've just outed you on live.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have been on a few, commercials and done some movies, but I have watched a ton of comedy, like stand-up comedy.
Mm,
Learning from Steve Martin and other folks, and I've always wanted to, do some of that improv. I've seen people do improv, and it's just mind blowing how they're able to switch context.
yeah.
And how did they get so good? Again, I'm going to go back to it. They had a lot of practice.
Yeah. Right. I mean,
I'm
what's
telling you.
interesting about what you just said, though, it's not something that you're necessarily born with all the time. That's innate. You
Exactly.
can learn these types of things. So again, folks who may not be as quick witted or whatever the case may be can actually be around like-minded people who are doing the same type of things you are, and you can pick up
Hmm.
those skills and then the practice
Yeah.
kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
just because you're not necessarily the greatest at that particular skill set today, put in that work. And as Sinead, I think, said, express and appreciate the process of putting in some of the work to actually get to where you want to be.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed. And Kaylee said she actually downsized or minimized from using her Shure MV7 with a Rodecaster Pro and XLR to going straight into a USB. And the feedback has been that she sounds a lot better. That's
No gas
I
now.
think that's the thing with audio too. You I think the tendency is that we want to sound like somebody else, right? And you have to learn how to sound like yourself.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Right? Does that make sense? Because we want Joe Rogan or whoever, and all of that stuff, and you got to figure out how you sound, your own voice, and then once you do that, I think you're off to the races.
Look, everyone was, and no fault, no doubt to them. Shouts out to everyone who's
Hmm.
doing what it is that they do, because we all, I think,
Agreed.
probably have it in our closet too, or in our locker. Everyone can't sound like Michael Jackson on the Michael Jackson microphone.
No
That
way.
SM7B, look, it's dope. It really is. But I got rid of mine.
Mm,
I'm on this Lewitt 440 right here, going
boom.
straight into my
Here we go.
output.
Team Lewitt.
Man, this is where it's at, brother. For me,
Nice.
right? Again, this
Yeah.
works for me. I've gone from a Yeti to a SM7B to a MV7 to uh, yada yada yada, all these other things. But right now,
Right.
for me and my environment and what resonates with my voice and my community, I'm Team Lewitt right now.
See, it all comes down to the purpose behind the tool,
Hmm,
right? The
say
Rodecaster
that.
Pro was designed for a four people conversation
Mm,
that are sitting in the same room. It's got built-in record. It's got built-in microphone come in, right? You can add intros, outros, music behind me. Each tool that's designed is for a specific purpose.
yes.
And
Yeah.
if you're just going to be yourself in the room, maybe you like the ability to have those soundtracks playing, right? It all comes down to what's going to work for you. I've been donning a USB mic from the beginning, and in the middle I was like, oh, let me try out this box with some XLR and everything. I was like, this is which way too many things on my desk. I like to minimal, I'm minimal with too many cameras. Okay.
Don't.
Yes, since the man with a dolly and a jib and
Oh,
and
we go.
every single angle. See, there we go.
Yeah,
Look at
see, stop it. Stop teasing him, Junaid. Don't do it. Yeah, we gonna get to our
ancient
gear
ladies and
segment.
everything.
I want to get back. I want to get to the comments though. Initially, content is more important than quality of gear. You won't get your message out if you spend months and thousands of dollars finding the perfect gear. hundred
That's
percent,
true.
hundred
That's
percent,
true.
100%. Yeah. Yay! This is great news. One of the reasons I've not done podcasts is because I think I needed those gears. Yeah, exactly. And they're too expensive. You don't need that. And this is really cool. This is a really cool comment. Steve, James, and Junaid, I'm sitting here in Wisconsin, really enjoying your show. Um, so smooth and engaging. I have subscribed. Oh my gosh, I appreciate you, buddy, and I like it. And I like it. We'll come back again. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you so much. And then
Yeah.
last one before we get into some other stuff here. But I would make sure that that you have a solid idea first. A few friends of mine have spent thousands of dollars on gear, but never launched a show. Think that all kids who buy guitars play. Yeah, exactly. Everybody play guitar want to be Jimi Hendrix.
How many
Why don't
garage
I
sales
sound
have
like
you
Jimi
gone to
Hendrix?
and saw an old drum set? Right. Yeah.
That reminds me of the punching bag that I got a few months ago. I haven't punched it much.
It's still in the box, brother. Sound like when
No,
I
it's
bought
not
the
in the
old
box.
Solo
It finally
Flex
made
back
it
in the
out of the
day,
box. It's hanging now. It just needs
yeah.
some time
Oh
and
my
attention.
gosh! All right, Mommy Lala had to go, and then Mr. John, how are you doing? So I finally got down here to your comment. I've live streamed a little. What are you talking about? Little?
Really?
You do it like 2 nights a week, buddy. Stop it.
Understatement of the day right there.
Yeah, I'm
Look
trying
at
to tell
this
you.
guy.
I thought you live stream a lot, James, but this dude does it a
Yeah.
lot too. All right, so we talked a lot about podcasting. Talked a little bit about the idea of content creation a little bit, and I want to be sensitive of time, right? Because I want to make sure I try to keep this to as close to an hour as possible. One of the things, so we just talked a little bit about it, talked a little bit about gear, but I want to make sure we talk a little bit more about gear because even though we just had the whole conversation, I do believe gear matters. And so we could talk a little bit about this gear section. All right, Mr. Junaid, we gonna
Oh
start with,
snap!
huh? What'd you say?
I said, oh snap!
Yo, snap.
Good.
So, gear matters. We just had this whole conversation and said it doesn't, but it does, um, to some degree. Can you show everybody a little bit about your setup and what you got going on, and then also how it actually works? From you utilize it to work with your workflow as well.
Absolutely. So when we were all sitting in front of computers and figuring out how to live stream, we were looking at Ecamm lives and sorry, the Elgato live cam, and I was like, that's too much. And then I discovered this little cool toy called the A10 Mini Pro, and me having so many cameras, I was like, hey, why not? Why not just do this? So I put these cameras together, arranged them. Took me a whole year to figure out where everything would go. He says we can't hear you, Junaid. What?
I can hear you.
All right. And a whole year of setting up the cameras, figuring out which lens to put on there, what's going to go in my background. Like it was a whole shebang, right? But before I set up my studio for live streaming, I was still podcasting, and I had a workflow for it where I would invite a guest. They would go through the form, they would sign up, and then I have some emails go out. So that was a really simple workflow, automatically generating those Zoom links. So then when they're ready, we jump on a Zoom call and start recording. Now, after watching this show, I was like, all right, I need to rethink of how I'm gonna do my upcoming shows because I loved the workflow that Steve put into this. Right, it's beautiful. So looking from the live streaming perspective, I've got multiple camera angles and I just like to flaunt these lenses. And this is like a close up camera so I can have a direct conversation with you. I know a little far away from the microphone. And
You
this
look like
helps
the
me.
most interesting man in the world when you go to that when you go to that
Right. And
go back to that camera again. Go back to the camera. I'm going to do the voiceover. The most interesting man in the world, Junaid Ahmed.
Thank you so much. So this is my little behind the scenes showing people, hey, well, I've got different screens, the teleprompter, confidence monitor, extra side view, my little big desk right here, big monitor right here, an ability to have the lights controlled and gridded so that I'm not leap like the light is not leaking off to the rest of the scene. Kind of control the lighting.
Excellent. What kind of cameras do you have in there?
I've got full frame cameras by Canon, uh, running f1.8 35 millimeter lens in the front one. I've got a 50 millimeter f1.4 on here, which I just put on today just to try it out. And then on the back, it's a 24 millimeter f2.8. So I'm running all full frame cameras mainly because it gives you that bokeh, right? The bokeh is just marvelous.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff. Mr. James Hicks.
Man, don't make me follow that.
I
Don't
know,
look.
man. I'm sorry.
Don't make me
I'm
follow
sorry,
that.
man. I'm sorry. I know, man.
Uh,
I mean, few,
you kidding me?
James
few
got some really good stuff, man.
he
What are you
does,
talking
man.
about,
He
brother?
does. He got those expensive LEDs over there in the
I
corner right behind him
know.
too. And
Oh my
Love
then the
me some
50
those
inch
gosh,
LEDs.
TV, behind him.
this is not going to go well for me. I'm gonna lose all kind of club. Janae, that's dope, brother.
It
What you
is.
got is dope, and so, but everyone has what resonates and what works for their particular situation. I guess let me say that right again. Not
Yeah.
everyone has or needs full frame DSLR and or mirrorless cameras, but what you do need those. So shouts out to you for those. So again, I want to kind of take that limiting factor from folks who are looking to getting started. Man, do I need to go out and buy that $2,000 Canon or $2,000 Sony? No, go
Agreed.
get the $700 ZVE 10 or something of that nature. That being said, this is me from the back. This is what I'm looking at as I go live. So, I got the studio kind of really centered on my view here with this very enormously large.
Lord have mercy.
Shouts out to 49 inches right here.
Lord,
Let
49
yes,
me get
yes.
inches,
out the
Step,
way
baby.
step,
so you can
step,
see
step,
it, man.
step back again.
Step back.
Lord have mercy. Woo. God, I mean,
I'm not
And
playing
you
in the
got the
streets,
sun
man.
out.
Look, we trying to y'all think somebody playing. We
man.
trying to really come correct here. So yeah, I got the Samsung Curve 49 as my primary display, so I can lay everything out effectively. I got my 3-point lighting going up here. I got those running. Pointing at the wall, kind of providing also some diffusion as well, so it's not just hitting me directly in the face. My primary runner and go-to camera is that Sony ZVE10. Right now, it's got the 16 millimeter lens on it down at f2.5. But I actually, in about an hour, I think I'm getting the what is it? The 18 to 50 should be arriving from Amazon. So I actually wanted to get that lens to actually have some play as well, and some options in terms of the focal length and things of that nature. Um, right there, that would be the face cam from Elgato. So that's what this view is right here. I got that action running. Hold on, let me. That's not the right one. There we go. There's the face cam. So that's what that is coming in. That's a 1080 30 frames per second view that's coming in off of that particular camera. I got my top down shot. So this right here is coming off of just a webcam as well. So this is just a J5 Curate, but it's a 4K camera that I can adjust and move and do my top-down shots and things of that nature. Trying to be like Junaid. So I got a little movement action going here too.
Yeah.
So I got the Rovi
Yeah, there
slider
it
going,
is.
doing that thing, keeping it sexy. This is the Sony ZV ZV1 on here. This is a phenomenal little device as well, very versatile. So I got that going back and forth, keeping that shot going. So yeah, I love that. And then all of my practical lights, you see those going across the environment. So I just actually got some Govee lights that are coming. I'm actually working on a partnership relationship with them, but the majority of the room is actually hue lights set to a specific tone and a specific uh, color temperature for every time I go live. So that's kind of what I got from a camera. Um, the microphone, I already talked about that. That was the Lewitt 440. Got my RCP going, everything going at the Rodecaster. Stream Deck is controlling all of the movement and all of the scenes. Handful of monitors going on across here too as well. Let me see if you can see. So this is actually a secondary monitor that I've got.
Mm.
I've got, what are these? They're huge. Gosh, I think these are 38. There's two of them right here. It's two 38s that are just
Wow.
normally here for whatever, and
I
then
just
I got
got
the 49.
138.
It's it's bad, brother. I don't need one.
It's
I had to
good.
tell my
It's
wife how
good.
much I paid for them, but oh well. So a lot of monitors, and then I got really from a marketing perspective, and shouts out to my buddy Corey Tallboy Sanders, who told me to take advantage of this 50-inch real estate that I got behind me and
Yeah.
utilize this Roku Smart TV. So I actually have kind of marketing slide on there
Nice.
whenever I go live as well. So that really provides some breakup in terms of separating me from the room as well. So I got my camera set at like I said f2.5 right now, so it's got the bokeh going. Everything's a little bit out of focus, a little blurry. So just again providing that separation, and then the color combinations within the studio. I see Mr. JP Hightech in the building. He's the one who actually helped me get that dialed in and make sure that that's right. So I mentioned those names. I mentioned all of that different stuff because we work within the community to make sure that look, you don't know everything, but
Absolutely.
let's be collaborative in terms of what you're getting. Should I go with the Stream Deck XL or just a 16 or just the 8? Well, let me tell you the whys and the benefits of going with the larger one as opposed to the smaller one. You make the decision. Should I go with the big lights that have the softbox, or should I go with flat panels? Well, let's have a discussion and what meets your needs. So I say all that to say, be very collaborative within your community. And this type of a session right now that you're having, Steve, helps with a lot of those conversations, a lot of those answering those questions a lot of folks have. So,
Oh
what
man,
else
oh
have I
man.
got? I got stuff. There's stuff everywhere. I don't want to show all the Christmas gifts on the floor because it's very messy. But
Yeah.
there's gear showing up all the time for some unknown reason.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
I
know
know
how it shows up.
they were asking, of course, in the audience, just about, because I think they were talking about the mic. I don't know if it's actually going through the Lewitt or not, if it's going through something else. But I didn't want to go in there say too much because I
Oh,
know we wanted to make sure we got everything sorted before you
yeah,
got
so
on.
it's connected to the Elgato low profile arm, right? And then
Yeah.
and via XLR, it's plugged into the Rodecaster Pro over here. Yeah.
All right. All
And
right.
as far as the system wise, everything's run off of my M1 Mac Mini, and I've got a couple of CalDigit Thunderbolt 4 hubs that are doing all the
How many
connectivity
cow
pieces.
digits do you got? You got one or two?
Two. I got two.
You got two?
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys are beasts, man. You got okay. I gotta take it off.
Redundancy.
I gotta take it off. I gotta take it off of that, man. Yeah, I'm tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all. You know.
I had to show out a little bit. You got Junaid over there doing TV commercials and movies, and he's got his slider. I had to show you mine. Let me bring mine back. We'll move
You got monitors. I got cameras.
You got cameras. I know, right? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
compensate for
We didn't
something.
even get to.
I don't know.
We didn't get to all the Junaid stuff either, too. But I know, I know we could probably go back and have a whole separate session on the setup, and then also how everybody actually uses that. And I think I'll probably have you guys back for strictly just about like 100% just about gear, and just walk through, maybe your cameras, why you chose that lens, also, I got, just like you guys too, which was cool. And I stole it from Junaid, was the slider. He was the Tom Buck was like one of the first ones that I noticed when he was doing a video. He had the slider, had that whole parallax, type of motion going back. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is that? What in the world is,
What is
what kind of
going on?
camera is that? And then I saw Junaid when he had his, and I was like, oh, and I was able to pick up um, what is it called? Edelchrome slider
Electron,
and
yeah.
a head one, pretty cheap. And so I've been utilizing it, and I love it, man, because I just love the effect that it actually provides. Just completely different than everything else that you just have from a head on shot or straight on shot. So, gentlemen, before we close up, I want you guys to provide anybody who is thinking about, you know, understanding a little bit more about taking their podcast and maybe turning it into a live stream and going down this live stream route, because I know that there are a lot of people who are probably apprehensive about, first, they're probably apprehensive about even starting a podcast. So my thought is I want you to speak to those people who probably already have a podcast, because actually the majority of the people in our group have a podcast. But talk to them a little bit about just kind of overcoming maybe some of that trepidation that they may have, and giving them like one or two pieces of wisdom to help them be successful to kind of as they go down this live stream journey from moving into from podcasting to live streaming. And Junaid, I'll start with you.
So the power of live streaming, right? Now, for you probably haven't heard my podcast, but when I live streamed my podcast with James Hicks, I got noticed. Couple people reached out to me and was like, "Hey, Junaid, we want you to be a guest on my podcast, on my live stream," because they saw what I was doing. Now, if I continued to just post the audio version of it, I'd still get the same listeners, but I wouldn't get new blood coming in and asking me or coming in listening to the show. So that's one thing, right? It's marketing. Like more than the time and effort you put on the podcast itself, it's the marketing aspect that you can really bring in front of people what you're doing with live streaming. Now, live streaming on Facebook, I mean, there's tens of different platforms where you can live stream your podcast and bring that extra connection. Like a lot of Jamie Taylor, this is the first time I've heard of him because I haven't been in this network as much. So it it opens up more windows and doors for you
Mm.
when you live stream.
So before James goes, I'm glad you brought up Jamie for a second, because like I said, he's been a buddy of mine for a while, and he's a developer by trade, so super smart, like developer type of guy. His podcast has reached, and I'm just going to dote on him for a second before we get to James, over 300,000 downloads. And I know there are people who have more, right? You think about he talks about from a developer standpoint of what he does professionally, and he has over 300,000 downloads, probably and more than that. And I think that was earlier this year. He crossed that number, so he's well up above. He's become a Microsoft VIP. All of these things from his podcast and his knowledge, and so people, please understand that when you really niche down and understand your market, you can start to drive, a lot, not just business, but a lot of notoriety, a lot of thought leadership to from your podcast, where other people will start to kind of understand who you are and actually want to, just like Junaid said, hey, I want you to be on my podcast, and I want you to do something different. So go ahead, James.
No, hey, shouts out to that, man. Congratulations on those metrics, Jamie. That's
Amen.
a great thing for sure. And let me just go. I'm looking at some comments before I go, and I
Yeah.
saw Coffee Talking Tech was talking about the microphone. I think he probably, when I was moving back and forth, it didn't sound like I was coming from the Leeward here, but yeah, I'm definitely coming straight out of the Leeward here.
Yep.
Listen, live streaming is it. It really is. It's the cool shiny thing that's been around for a while, but now if there's any blessing of, again, what I keep saying, the 17 months of COVID and lockdown has allowed a lot of us content creators to focus and really hone in on our skills and where we want to drive our messaging. Podcasting opens up a lot of avenues, a lot of conversations, and audio is critical. Audio is key. So love that piece as well. But when you bring in the ability to have video, And I'm speaking with my hands on purpose, because when I'm on stage, I'm always doing what I call the jazz hands. But being able to emote, right? Being able to show emotion, being able to actually show this aspect of your story to your audience and have that conversation, that takes it to a whole different level and allows folks to really dial in and connect with you on a different level, which can really be rewarding, right? You be careful what you ask for because when you start doing that, then different types of opportunities start coming in as well. But just being able to bring a whole different aspect, a whole different genre, a whole different focus within your discussion of the video piece with the live stream aspect, that really can be incredibly powerful. Everyone can get on in front of a camera. Everyone can tell their story. Again, get out of your way in terms of thinking that you can't do it. We all walk through our studios and
Mm.
show kind of some fancy stuff that we got, but we use the tools that we have for a specific reason. You don't need this to go ahead and put out a quality piece of content from a video perspective. Let the audio go ahead and do that. Put that on the Spotify, on the Apple Music, on the iHeart, on the Apple, on the Amazon, Pandora, wherever. That's key and that's critical as well. But man, when you fire up that video piece, when you fire up that live stream, and you start having conversations where you're looking in the eye of the person you're talking to, and again, you see that emotional reaction, and you see kind of that aspect of it, that's just a whole different. It's very addicting, to be honest with you. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to do it so frequently. Just having those stories, telling those stories, and seeing reactions, and engaging with the folks that I'm talking about, and just having that dialogue. So yeah, don't shy away from it. Definitely embrace it for sure is what I would say.
Oh man, you guys have just dropped so many jewels, and I mean we can go on, for a long time, and I do want to go on for a long time, but I can't. I appreciate both of you. You know, when I was going through this process of actually starting Podcasters Live, and I threw it out to James. He was like, dude, that's dope. He's like, yo, that's dope, man. And he said, just do it, and I did. And the cool thing, man, is that we have had a lot of traction, a lot of people that are like what we're doing. They're gonna like it even more after tonight, hearing your stories, hearing where you guys came from, about your podcast, about your companies, about everything that you guys are doing. And Junaid, we didn't even get the opportunity to talk about monetization from an Amazon influencer standpoint. So I'm gonna have to have you back to talk about that, because one of the big things that everybody wants to talk about from podcasting is monetization. And you know, we had a conversation, you know, kind of before we started, and man, we got a whole different perspective on monetization than I think the normal podcaster does, and how to go about doing this, using your podcast, going through using live stream to actually monetize everything that you're doing. Let me stop before I go down that road. And James is chomping at the bit. He's ready to go down there, and I can't do it.
You opened up a whole nother can of worms right there. We can go down. Look, I can go put on another cup of coffee, and we can keep moving. Sure, but that's true, right? Because you want to get paid for your worth and for your value and for your message, and folks are willing to pay you. Don't be hesitant to ask for sponsors, and don't be again. I'll stop. Well, that'll be part two.
That's part two.
That'll be part two. Yep. Yeah, you got
that's part two. Gear and monetization is part two. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your feedback and helping me as we kind of grow this concept, this project, this thing that I feel has some massive legs to it. And just having you to be part of this has been amazing. And I can just tell just from the comments the value that you guys have already added to the community. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And you know, just make sure you hang behind the in the green room as well. But thank you guys.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great time.
Excellent. Give me 1 sec. Oh, woo, man! Oh man, we could have. It's only 8. I know it's 8:00, 8:17. We could have gone for a long time, but I want to be respectful, and I want to make sure that we are tackling the topic of the actual live stream, because we could go down into a couple of different rabbit holes. But I want to make sure, kind of what Junaid was talking about, that run a show. I want to be cognizant of not going too far afield. So the same thing when you start to think about your content, your thought process from a podcast as you move into thinking about going live stream. This is why we started this community. We started this community because a lot of podcasters struggle with discoverability, and live streaming is the thing now and going forward that is going to help you with your level of discoverability. Podcasters Live is here to stay. We are growing by leaps and bounds. We ask that you go to our YouTube channel. If you're not listening to it on our YouTube channel, make sure you go and hit that subscribe and like button, because if you want to be on the show, our website is going to be launching in January. Also, our audio podcast, I've already recorded 5 episodes for that. That's going to be launching in January. So we have quite a few things that are actually on the horizon. But as we always say with Podcasters Live, we learn together, we grow together, we podcast together, and we go live together. Have a great night. I appreciate all of you, and God bless.